Right, hello there, it's Stephen Ritchie. I'm a steel sculptor from Ashford in Kent. I've got a two-part commission for the same customer, and this is the first part of it. I sort of thought I'd show you it nearly finished, and then I thought I'd show you how I made it. So this was part one of the two-part commission, and this is to go to the left-hand side of the building. Right, so how did I do it? So I actually had to go and buy some material. Don't like doing things like that. And I needed 3 different sizes for each limb. I've got 8 limbs, so I need 24 pieces of material. I've made them all the same length, so it'll make it nice and easy. And I'm using my bench as a stop, and I've marked a line on my bench, and I'm cutting to that line. Now I could set up a sort of a cross-cut machine, but when you're only doing 24, it's not worth it. And so this is pretty quick way of doing it. So I bent the limbs up into a octopus limb shape, but quite roughly. I haven't fully decided exactly what this sculpture is going to look like yet. And I'm presently marking out some cardboard patterns to put in between the limbs to sort of make the body up. This is quite an easy process. I literally put the card up against my limbs, mark them out so they're a little bit bigger, because I know I'm going to press and squash them around a little bit. And here's a very nice little device. I put a vice in the other way, so it gives me a lovely platform when I clamp it into the second vice, a vice and a vice if you like. And it gives me the opportunity to use it like a little table. I'm just marking out my card now. Now, if I could have done this by hand, i.e. a hand guillotine, I would have done so. But with these shapes, there's quite a lot of internal curves, a concave curve, which with an angle grinder or with a hand guillotine is a very difficult thing to produce. There are metalsmith tools, obviously, with rolling cutters, if you like. As you pull through, you can turn it around, but I haven't got one of them at the moment. I used to have one, but it got misplaced when I kept moving workshops. So here I am, and I'm just having a quick mark out, and I'm going to take the plasma cutter to this and chop all these little bits out. Now, it's quite thin material, but it's thick enough to me to squash, bend and panel beat into the shapes that I want. If the material was too thin, the squashing and the panel beating could actually make it so thin it would split. And if it's too thick, then you're just making hard work for yourself and making the sculpture extremely heavy. Now, keeping in mind that this particular sculpture is going to be outside, and it's quite close to the seaside, so it's definitely got to be galvanised or coated in something. So I'm going to take this to the galvanisers. Now, with a piece this size, you wouldn't just take this piece to the galvanisers, because be warned, there'll be a minimum charge, and a minimum charge for most galvanisers sort of starts at 100 quid. So if I took a little piece like this, I'd be charged 100 quid just to galvanise it. Well, ordinarily, if I was banging in a big pile, a piece of this size wouldn't cost you 100 quid, that's for sure. Anyway, and that's pound sterling, by the way, plus VAT, which is 20%, so 120 quid. No, I'm going to wait till I've got a few more sculptures, or the second half of this at least, and I've got a few other things to galvanise as well. So here I am, I'm banging it out with the old plasma cutter like I normally do, and getting all them lovely internal curves. It's a very quick process. I try and protect myself as much as I can. I'm a well aerated workshop. I've got my doors open, but if this was an enclosed space, you'd want to extract yourself. There's a lot of fumes. Mild steel fumes aren't particularly healthy, and as you see, I've got my full respirator mask, which I can just about see what I'm doing in that, and a huge amount of sparks. Now, when I'm just doing the odd tiny little piece, I don't always put all the face mask on and stuff, which is a bit foolish. You should do this every time. And I'm sorry for some ex-trainers of mine. They must be turning in their graves, some of them, the way I operate. But it's only me, and I can look after myself. I've already lost some limbs. I don't want to really hurt myself anymore. So here we are. I'd like to do these in 2 halves. So that's sort of half a body going on there, which looks very fishy, doesn't it? However you look at it. So that's what I'm doing. I'm filling in the gaps. And that's, I think, the same piece, and a fantastic photograph of my finger and my hand as well. I go to a lot of effort to make sure my hands are photographed beautifully. I could have been a hand model if I had all my fingers, but there you are. So there's my 2 pieces, and at a later stage I'll obviously put these 2 pieces together, and I've given them a bit of a pre-clean up. I can get into places with my angle grinder and my sanders that I won't be able to when I put these 2 pieces together. And of course I've got the sort of body and head to still mess about with. And here's the body now. Now I've pressed these under my fly press, and to give them a little bit more, I've cut them and squeezed them together to get more of a dome shape going. There are other ways of producing domes, but I quite like this. This is much thicker material now that I'm using. These are proper little offcuts and things found in skips. So it's not going to add too much to the weight, of course. I can't enclose it completely because in the galvanizing process there's liquids. The liquids want to escape, so I've got to make these so the liquids can come out in the galvanizing process. So anyway, here I am. I've got my two little dishes. I've put my body together now, so there's a real sort of, what would you call it, a neck? Yes, I suppose you would really. And the limbs are starting to be formed quite well now. I haven't sort of welded up the suckers and stuff. This is a great example of making sure you don't open your mouth when you're doing plasma cutting sometimes. And if you don't want to be blasted in the face with a lot of sparks, then you can pre-drill a hole in your material and most of the sparks will go down and away from you. As I just plunged in with the setting quite high, they blasted back into my face, which isn't a terribly healthy thing to do, and you don't want to be smiling at the time either, otherwise you'll pebble dash your teeth. But it went well, everything got cut out. This is thicker material now. I've moved on from the octopus. I'm now trying to do some underwater foliage. I'm not sure I'm using the right term. Anyway, some kelp. I'm making some kelp. I've done a little bit of research. I've walked down the seaside. I'm a bit of a beach comber anyway. And once I've sort of pre-cut things, they don't always go all the way through. So I have to do this mad thing of crunching it in a vice and giving it a wiggle. And as you see, all the pieces are coming out quite nicely. And these are kelp pieces, which then goes down to a very narrow pod and then a stem, and then the stems are all welded in together. And that's what I'm making now. I not only cut them out, cleaned the edges up, and then I gave them a lovely little twist. Now this is quite thick material. It's probably the wrong material. You probably want cold rolled, so I've been advised, where here I've used hot rolled material because it was just offcuts left over from another job, and just using those bits up. You'll have to excuse some of the background noises. It's blowing an absolute hoolie outside, and it's making everything rattle at the moment. But it's all good. So that's where I got to in the first week, I suppose, of doing this particular thing. That's as far as I got. Quite pleased what was coming along. Still really hadn't decided exactly what was going to go on in here. The round disc with the holes in it that you see there is part of some fishing tackle. The chap that I'm doing this commission for used to go fishing with his dad and shrimping and all sorts of things. So he gave me some few bits and bobs which I was hoping to incorporate in this first of the two-part sculpture, but in fact I never did. So there you are. I managed to put the body, the head and the eyes. I'm just sort of tinkering with the eyes and things. The limbs are sort of in the right places. I messed about for too long really trying to make this into a little table and things, and I went way over the top. And I went way over the top on the time on this as well for the budget, but that's what happens. Unfortunately, it has a knock-on effect for all the other customers that are waiting for me. But when it becomes their turn, I'm no doubt I'll get over the top with theirs as well. So I hope they're being patient. So there you are. I'm coming along really well. The octopus is really starting to take shape. I'd like to make octopuses and use them in other ways as well. And this is about halfway through the second week, I suppose. I actually started putting it together and formulating the base, and I finished up with this. So this is only part one of a two-part sculpture. Look out for part two. It's going to be a totally same customer, but a totally different sculpture altogether. I've got to get this painted and galvanized and one thing and another, so I think it's gone very well. Thank you very much for listening. This is only part one of a two-part, so look out for part two. Thank you now. Bye. Oh yeah, by the way, don't forget to share and subscribe and like and do all those other wonderful things. And of course, most importantly, stay safe. Okay? Really, stay safe, everyone. It's becoming very difficult times. I'm busy right around to next year, but I don't think everybody else is. So heads up, everyone. There's a long way to go, but we'll all get there, I'm sure. All right. Bye-bye now.